So I thought I would do this little video to show you how you might go about doing some of the annotations. Now, this is what someone's already sent me, and this is Act 2. Now, this is very detailed. As you can see, all the sort of important points or interesting points have been picked out. But since you are working with a PDF, it's going to be quite troublesome to do quite so much. So I'm going to take a look at a couple of pages of Act 2, which you should have read through already, but this is rather the way you would want to go about doing this. So this Act 2, Scene 1 starts in the newspaper office. The newspaper is called the People's Daily Messenger. And there's three characters here, as you know, as Lacan, the printer. He's in charge of printing the paper. He doesn't own it, but he has a lot of say in what goes into it. Hofstad is the editor, so he formally chooses what goes in, and Billing is the assistant in the office. So here we have a sort of three-way sort of influence between these people, and the idea that the newspaper will simply go out and tell the truth about something is misguided. It's not how it works. Things get put into newspapers to serve purposes, and in this case is no different. So the first thing you would notice looking at this are the lengthy stage directions. So these are, as you saw in previous Act 1, Arthur Miller really writes very lengthy stage directions. So here you get a sense very clearly of what the office looks like, and the characters are sitting there. So the first thing you notice at the bottom of the page here is just the sort of the politics, or how radical Billing and Hofstad actually are. They are excited at having Stockman's report. They're excited that they're going to get the chance to shake things up a bit, because they want to report it in full. Here, for example, Billing says, "It's a revolution, you know that? I mean, we're on the edge of a real revolution." So the newspaper clearly wants to tell the truth about the situation. However, as we go on, Dr. Stockman comes in, and Stockman continues to tell the truth. He says there are people who will try to hold power even if they have to poison the town to do it, which is what they're doing in the Springs. So Stockman comes in, and these people are going to be sympathetic to him. And then as Laxon comes in, and he is a little bit more reserved about what he's planning to do. So Stockman says here, "You run a fine paper, but supervise the printing, will you? I'd hate to see the weather report stuck in the middle of my article." Now that's Stockman assuming that other people in the newspaper are not going to be so helpful or supportive of his discovery, because he does want to change the world. You see, he says, "Make it perfect, eh? Like you were printing money. You can't imagine how I'm dying to see it in print. After all the lies in the papers, the half-lies, to finally see the truth about something important. And this is only the beginning. We'll go up to other subjects and blow up every lie we live by. What do you say?" Now, as Laxton then sort of backs off a bit, he's not really so keen. Billing, who's quite radical and also very naive, says, "Well, this will be in a museum one day, the day that the truth was born." So we could put in a little thing here, and just basically say Billing is naive, right? So that's another point that we can make about him. Okay, now as the discussion goes, as Laxton starts to show that he's got allegiances to the interests of the town as a whole. Okay, so the people, as in the title of the play, the enemy of the people, he says, "Look, I have to live here. I'd be different if he were attacking the national government or something, but if he thinks I'm going to start going after the whole town administration." So the power of this town council is already enough to make him feel that he has to be careful what he says. So there's a feeling here of self-censorship. So let's put that in. censorship. And he shows his vested interests. So here, a town administration, they're liable to be overthrown. I represent the small property owners in this town. Now, this is important because here he's starting to justify his complicit interests. And what he says is, look, I represent these people. I have to, I have to I have to be careful what I say. We have to be sensible. And that's where Billing interjects when he says, he'd applied for a job at the magistrate, and he says, I will have a chance to put across things. I could put plenty of big boys on the spot with a job like that. So he's naive about how the world works, because if you get into a position of influence or power, you have to sometimes go along with things that maybe aren't right. You can't just go in there and say that. Otherwise, a lot of people will be upset, powerful people, and you may not be able to survive for very long. So here Billing and Hofstad continue with their naivety, discussing how they can get influence and the things that they can do, and talking about what they would need in order to be powerful. They're talking about someone who's got money. So that's the kind of thing you would want to do as you go through Act 2. And I think it goes down there to the end of Scene 1. So if you read that through, it should be manageable. I will also suggest you do that tomorrow, Thursday, and you give me an update on how you're doing with that. And then there is a little quiz, like a little internet quiz that I will post the link to, that once you've completed Act 2, then you can check that you understand everything. We'll be looking, once you've covered the reading of this, we will look at this elements of this next week, particularly themes and things like conflict that take place. So that's the sort of level of expectation in terms of annotations. I know these things are a bit fiddly, but it would be easier if you had a book. Much, much easier, but that's what we can do for the moment. So can you please put a comment under the announcement in It's Learning just to say how you're getting on with this, and basically to say that you've completed Act 2. Okay, I will hear from you on Thursday.